144 chimpanzees owned by the U.S. Air Force may spend the rest of their lives in a biomedical lab undergoing experiments.
These are the space chimps from the colony trained for the U.S. space program, but animal groups, including those in Las Vegas, hope to save them from life in a lab. George Knapp of the I-Team is here with our story. George.
Paul and Gary, the groups that want to retire the space chimps to private sanctuaries are running out of time. They have until June 3rd to put in their bids, but they're up against a powerhouse medical foundation which already has custody of the chimps and has millions of your tax dollars backing it up. But as we found out, the foundation also has a track record. Animal rights activists armed with a video camera provided this rare glimpse into the inner workings of a biomedical lab. Among the 1,000 animals kept here in steel boxes are chimpanzees, some sickly, some crazed, some dead. These baby chimps are slated to be injected with HIV. All they seem to want is to suckle and touch. About 2,000 chimps live in American labs, far more than may ever be needed, according to a federal study. Hundreds were bred for AIDS research. Then a discovery was made.
They are not good AIDS models. They can be infected with HIV, but they very rarely, if ever, get sick from it.
As a result, the National Research Council in 1997 called for a moratorium on chimp breeding and recommended that chimps in labs be sent to sanctuaries for retirement. At the Primate Center on Holloman Air Force Base, that advice falls on deaf ears. The Colston Foundation, which already controls about half of the chimps in the country, wants more, including the 144 space chimps. The man who runs the place has been dubbed King of the Apes.
He wants the rest of them, and he said he wants to breed them and have 5,000 primates to do this kind of research on it.
Toxicologist Fred Colston says he started experimenting on chimps when he could no longer use human prisoners, and says he would breed chimps to be a bank of body parts for use in transplants. It's not the first controversy for Colston. He's received $8 million in federal AIDS research money, yet described AIDS to the Wall Street Journal as a, quote, silly disease. He suggested AIDS victims should post quarantine signs. Colston, a chain smoker, claims nicotine is non-addictive, but it's his care of primates that has generated the most heat. In 1993, 3 of his chimps literally cooked to death from a faulty heater. The government fined him $40,000. Other primates died of thirst, choked on their own vomit, or were killed during operations to test new painkillers. Colston says they're better off with him than in the jungle.
This isn't even in research. This is neglect.
New charges of neglect are under investigation, as well as a probe of whether Colston overcharges the government for the care of the Air Force chimps. Despite this, Colston is considered the front runner to gain permanent ownership of the space chimps. The Air Force is handling the disposal problem as it would so many spare parts.
There is a process for divesting property within the Air Force. Property includes desks or pieces of equipment and those sorts of things. They can be chimpanzees.
But this time the property is thinking, feeling, intelligent beings, direct descendants of the first who blazed the final frontier.
Originally selected for the MR2 flight because of their physical and mental characteristics, the chimpanzees turn out to be willing pupils.
They are an unwilling party. They have no say in what's done to them.
Martine Collette directs what could be a model for the sanctuary system envisioned by chimp defenders. The Wildlife Way Station already has spacious enclosures for orangutans and other animals and is building $1 million primate center.
It's very cost prohibitive to have chimps. To raise this chimp will be $250,000.
The Colston Foundation is confident it will get the Air Force chimps because animal groups don't have the foundation's money, most of which comes from the government. The foundation would not comment for this story because it would not be part of a report along with, quote, animal rights hacks without credentials, even Dr. Jane Goodall.
I have made it my business to know a great deal about the conditions in which the lab chimps are kept. It's rather like putting a person in isolation in a small cage.
Dr. Goodall is, of course, perhaps the world's foremost primatologist. We finally reached her this afternoon after trying for a couple of weeks. She's personally trying to thwart the Colston Foundation, something she has done in the past, and says she will appeal to higher-ups in the Air Force to postpone their deadline. But even Dr. Goodall is not hopeful. If you would like to help or you'd like more information, you can call our 8 line, you can dial us up on Las Vegas Online, or you can write to us here at the station. We'll be glad to send you plenty of information.
George, you said in there it was very costly to keep chimpanzees. Why is that?
About $10,000 a year, they figure, for each of them, and it's because they're like humans. It's like keeping someone in a cage, a human being, like in prison, because they're so smart. They need to be entertained. A lot of them like television. They like to read books. They like to finger paint. So it's a major undertaking. You got to watch them all the time.
Daycare center, practically.
Practically.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George.